So go Cyclones.
Well, on that note, we should probably do a solid segue into FOIAball and some of the reporting you've been doing. And say if you've never done culture agriculture, I was gonna say if you've never done or attended a FOIA Friday before, this is just a monthly webinar podcast put on by Muckrock. So this whole session will be recorded. If you registered, which you have, if you're here, you'll get emailed a copy of the recording afterward. It'll also be up on YouTube, and then there will be a tip sheet that we'll send out after as well with all of the resources and stuff from um, yeah, from the session and related reading and fun stuff to kind of go down. Um, but yeah, so with us today is David from FOIAball. I'm so excited. Um, I don't know, in your words, you want to describe FOIAball?
That's a fantastic question. It's just public records reporting on college football. I mean, I'm sure everyone who's in here knows that most college football teams are tied to public universities, and as such, they have uh, they're required to abide by public records laws. When I was pitching it to a lot of people who didn't understand it, like, imagine if you could get, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, and you could get like all of Sean McDermott's emails or like all of the owners like private jet trips, and people be like, oh, that's really cool, I'd love to do that. I'm like, well, you can do that for college sports in almost all regards. There's some exceptions. So the more I'd been an idea in my head for like 6 months starting January. Like a lot of people in the media, I was laid off in uh beginning of May, and I decided to just spend a month sending out FOIA requests, see if I could do it. I started getting stuff back, and I was like, all right, I think maybe this can turn into something. But like, it's sort of, I think the tagline on the website is like college football's biggest, weirdest, and wildest secrets. I love doing reporting about big, splashy stories, but I have a soft spot for using FOIA for like, I don't want to say trolling, but finding out things that FOIA officers probably aren't expected to get, finding out weird things that public record that like schools could be doing that you don't necessarily think about. Like one of the first few requests I did was I was kind of always grossed out. I'd go to sporting events and I would see like urinals like packed with Zen. I don't know, guys here probably know that, but like people just toss them in there and they're disgusting. I was like, I bet colleges are dealing with this. And I got one back from like Boise State where they were talking about how Zins kept clogging up the football locker room urinals, and I tweeted that out, and it got a ton of traction. I was like, all right, like people, journalism is very important, but it should also be fun. Like people love big important stories, and people love fun dumb stories. So like trying to hit that balance is really important to me. So that's what I'm trying to do here.
Definitely. I mean, you've had some really good stories that I, have found super entertaining, like about college mascot, in and outs, codes of conducts, NDAs, all of that. Like, how do you, I don't know, typically get where do you find your inspiration for some of these stories? Like, are you filing records based on hunches or tips that you get from people, or is it mostly like fishing
I've
expeditions? And
been
like, oh, that's weird. Let me follow
There's a
up on
lot
that.
of fishing expeditions. It's funny because I've been in a bit of a rut the past couple of weeks where I've been like, I don't think that's good. I don't want to send that. Which you should never do. You should just send it and let the FOIA officer worry about it. It's just sort of thinking about things that might be out there. You sort of have to like trick your brain to think of like not stuff you want, but stuff that could be produced. Like, obviously I would want like documents about a school doing tax fraud, but like that's not, they don't have a file that says tax fraud unless you're UCLA and you do. But like, just sort of thinking about like what kind of things people would produce, like whether it's like I was trying to brainstorm about mascots, and I was like, they probably have them sign NDAs. There's probably weird rules, and it was true. There was like Michigan State had a rule that said you can't moon like the UM crowd. And I was like, that's okay, that's pretty funny. Western Kentucky's mascot. Please don't make me say his name because I don't remember it off the top of my head. The big round rotund, like sort of red grimace guy, like he had all sorts of regulation. He had a very funny. There was like less regulation on that because he was sort of a laid back mascot where they were like, we don't have height requirements or weight requirements. You just need to go on vibe. So trying to see what's out there and then just like never dismissing an idea if it seems like you can always just send a couple FOIAs and see what's out there. But like odds are these are massive institutions. They're producing thousands of documents every single day from Slack messages to expenses to travel logs. So like there's probably gonna be something out there. If you think it's weird and you think it might be out there, it probably is. So like there's plenty of fun. Yeah, the UC Santa Cruz I think is the banana slug. So
Mhm.
that'd be definitely be one there. So I the thing is I guess like maybe I kind of have the right brain for it. I don't know. Like kind of just have to train it. But I've been teaching or I taught public records reporting to college students for a long time and just working with them to get their ideas kickstarted is a good way to get your own. I used to always do this exercise where I just take my favorite news site, go over the headlines and be like, what is a FOIA that could be out there? Whether, it's like if it's the thing about like a fire at a park, and there's, EMS and fire records, there's, environmental studies before it. So just trying to sort of look at the news and seeing which ways FOIA would interact with it is a good sort of training tool that I use a lot to try and just sort of jog my thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things that I was taught when I was in J school was besides just sitting at my desk and churning out copy, it was like, okay, when you're on your break, like go take a walk around the block. And especially having gone to J school in Chicago and living in Chicago, it was like take a walk around the block and see five different things that you could FOIA right now on your walk or like when you get back from your walk. So, yeah, whether it's a street light and requesting how much the street light cost or the potholes, which Chicago has many of, and how quickly or slowly the potholes are being repaired, complaints about, flooding or security camera footage or all these things. It's just like the idea of like looking at a story and thinking about it from a different perspective, I think is such a good practice.
Yeah,
Um,
just don't be working on your break. But aside from that, yeah, it's just
exactly.
the more it's one of those things where the more you start to think about it, the more you'll do it. So it can be very daunting. And this entire week I was like, I don't know what to FOIA. I don't know what I want to cover. I have no idea. So everyone gets stuck, but the idea is that it's out there. There's millions of stuff out there. So like don't hesitate to try and send it and you'll get something back. I
Yeah.
always so I did like a semester long internship for students, fall, spring, and summer, and everyone had the same question for me at like the beginning of the internship. They were like, "What if I don't get anything back? Like, what's going to happen?" I was like, "Don't worry, we'll get something back. Like, we will succeed. So you will succeed too."
Definitely. Well, that's a good segue into like one of the exercises that you would do with your interns and that you kind of do from time to time is looking at FOIA logs, which has come up a few times during FOIA Fridays as suggestions from guests and from panelists. So I can pull up your FOIA log of choice that you use as an example and share it.
Has it
Um,
been? I assume this hasn't been used yet, or else you would have told me, right?
I've not told them. Let's see. Let me.
No, no, I meant someone else hasn't shared the
Oh, I
inspiration.
don't know. You might be the first. I don't think
Okay.
anyone's picked this one up. Here, let me pull up. There we go. I'm sharing it. Yes, this is Secret Service, right?
Yeah, so I love the Secret Service FOIA log because it is everyone in the country knows who the Secret Service is. They may not know who the like Huntsville, Alabama police are or like the Department of Agriculture, but everyone knows the Secret Service. It's a big organization. It protects the president, so people want to know things from it. And it's just a fact. I would always the first day of the internship, I'd always walk my interns through it to just be like, here's sort of what people send. Here's how agencies respond. Here are things that are not requests. Here are things that are good requests. You can sort of see the names. You'll see a lot of journalist names that you recognize. You'll see these very simple requests that are, the foundation for like Pulitzer Prize winning stories. Like, I think, I don't know if in this log is in it because it's like 2022, but like David Farrenholt is at the New York Times now. Like his request for expenses from Secret Service, stays at Trump hotels was the backbone of like a massive story. And his requests are one sentence long. So that's why I always want to sort of impart on my students is that like requests don't need to be super long. They don't need to be uh, super involved. Like very simple things can be the foundation for very great reporting. But like I'm scrolling through it now, and you obviously see like Jason Leopold. I'm trying to find like a ridiculous. There's a lot of kooks that write in that are just like, I want to know why like the Secret Service showed up to my house last weekend. It's like they probably didn't. Um, But what I find is extremely useful is just like, what I would show to my students is a lot of them get hit with like not a proper request, and you can see them like they didn't ask for anything. They just said like you were stalking me, and I would like the Secret Service to back off. And then 4 hours later, like, well, I don't know what that request is, but you can see sort of things that are granted, things that are in process, and it's like, it gives you the other thing I'd like to say is like this is a big organization. They get tons and tons of requests, but you can see stuff that is successful. Like, there's a lot of young students come in and are like, well, I can't get anything. I can't like succeed in FOIA because they'll try it at first and sort of get stymied. So you can show us like this is a big organization. This get lots of requests, but things do get granted. So I love looking at it. I think it's fascinating. One request I'm just looking at right now is like, why are you no longer being considered for the position? What reason is the decision? Don't know what that means, but I'm interested now more than anything. Obviously a lot of stuff gets redacted on national security grounds and stuff, but using other people's reporting is a useful tool. When I was at the Daily Dot prior to this, I would always though try and like tell my people to see where you could zag where like others are zigging, because like you see a big story in the news, like there's a lot of January 6th stuff in here because this is 2020. Like don't go for that. Try and find things you think people aren't requesting, because everyone thinks like, oh, I want the big FOIAs that do this. And again, the mantra for I guess this session is there's so much out there. So I definitely wanted to like I saw the comment about the CTE stuff uh and like concussions. So a lot of college stuff is protected by FERPA, and it's kind of hard to get. I do know there are some SEC schools. I know Georgia has like an on-site concussion lab. I don't know what it does yet. I haven't looked into it, but like you can certainly request aggregate data. That's something I've done, where like you would not request like I want records of all the people that have like concussions, but you would say like I want the like spreadsheet that has like the sum total of concussions each year suffered by the team on it, and like that is something that's more likely to get released. So that's my other mantra is there's always a way. Like you just because you get stymied once or you think you can't get it, like there's always sort of different ways to go about it. Which also dovetails into my I'm just rambling now. Other point that I always like to make to students is I always tell them at the beginning of the internship, day one, I'm like, I'm going to teach you two things and you'll be able to succeed in FOIA no matter what. First one is keep a spreadsheet because you need to send out a lot of requests. You need to track them. And two, FOIA officers are there to help you. Like, if you want to go find out like what you can get from an SEC school about studies and data about CTE, call them all up. Call up Kentucky's records office. Call up Alabama's records office. You may need to find some people in some states where you can't do it, but call up LSU. LSU is very open about public records. They're actually surprisingly good. And just say, look, this is what I'm looking for. How would I frame that request? And they're there to help you. They're civil servants who want to do their job well, and their job is to provide these kinds of records. So utilizing if you ever get a rejection, introduce yourself is very important. Just getting on a first name basis with them is very useful. And just ask like, hey, I want this. If you send a request out and they reject it, that doesn't mean you can't get it. It just means you have to, figure out how to work with them to, for them to be able to release it. So, those are really the only two tips I've got.
Those are good tips. I mean, I think FOIA logs, it's fascinating. Like every month that, we're doing these FOIA Fridays, like no matter what beat, right? The last FOIA Friday we had was K through 12 education reporters.
Mhm.
And even they were like, oh, the FOIA log is so helpful. And working with FOIA officers to like set up a schedule is so helpful. And so it seems to be good advice no matter the beat, which is also advice that I agree with and
Yeah.
preached.
You can also request other people's FOIAs. So if a reporter has done a FOIA and you see in like a log it's been released or it's out there, you can just say, I want everything given to this reporter for this FOIA. And typically they'll do it because it's no extra work for them. And a lot of documents are big. A lot of reporters don't have a lot of time. So like just because someone got a FOIA document released to them and you didn't see a story about it or like they already published something about it, like doesn't mean there's not more out there. Like there's always use your own eyes to see what's out there. So you should always be requesting stuff that's already been released.
Yeah. One question that Diane has is if all universities have FOIA logs,
Uh,
which
no.
that would be.
So, and for all this talk about FOIA logs, I actually kind of hate them because I don't want people knowing what I'm doing. But that's really against the spirit of openness, and I shouldn't say that. But like, I know schools like UNC have them, Washington. It just kind of depends. There's no hard and fast rule on publishing it. With the Secret Service, I know the federal government is required for these um, agencies to publish them. But the thing is, they all keep logs. They may not be public, so you can go and request a FOIA log. You could go to any school and say, I would like a list of every FOIA you got this year, and they'll give it to you, and it'll be pretty easy to do it. So I didn't know you had a FOIA log explorer.
Yeah,
It's pretty
it
cool.
rules.
And in terms of costs, it depends. There's lots of states that don't charge stuff. You just kind of have to find those. Like, I don't think I've ever gotten a bill from North Carolina, which is fascinating. They should be charging me for this stuff, even though I don't want to. Like, Texas is pretty good. I haven't paid too much about that. Honestly, some of the liberal states are sort of worse, which is kind of wild. But like, I did not expect sort of like big SEC schools to be great at FOIA and like northern Big 12 schools to be bad at it. But that's kind of how it actually is. It's a weird dichotomy. But again, with costs, just I do this all the time. Like for a officer will come in and say that's going to be $5,000. I'm like, well, I'm not going to pay that. We've done this before, but like, how I'd like to pay $100. I'd like to pay $50. How could we do this request so that I can pay $50 and say, well, okay, well, we can search for 2 days instead of 2 months, or we can search for one email instead of five. And but you might think like, oh, I'm not going to get the things I want, or they're trying to stymie you, but they're not. Again, they're trying to help you. And the thing is, I was chatting with a FOIA officer at the University of Cincinnati a while back, and he was like, and I'm guilty of this all the time too. Like, journalists, requesters, they want to send out a big request. Give me all emails about this coach and his agent or his contracts and stuff like that. And it's like those are hard to fulfill, and like FOIA officers when they get a big bulk thing like that are like, this is annoying. I don't want to do that. They're people too. They have those feelings. So, like, start small and build it. Like, you're better off sending a small request and then doing a follow-up request when you know something's there versus trying to get all of that. So like with the UCLA story I did, I don't know if people saw it, but it was about their athletics department kind of doing tax fraud. I say kind of, but they definitely were. And I was asking for a totally different thing. I was asking for emails about like recruiting a player, which I thought they weren't going to give me because it involved sort of FERPA restrictions. But they sent me back some other responsive emails that didn't mention individual players. And sort of buried in that, I saw them talking about this specific charity, and I was like, okay, I'll do a follow up on that. So follow up requests are really important, and starting like super small is really, really it's a really useful tool. Like, you should always think small as opposed to big.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question from Chris. Could you explain how FERPA impacts
Don't
some of
know
the
now.
records that you're filing?
I have been explaining FERPA for years, and I still don't know what it stands for. It is the Family Education Rights Privacy Act, and I think that is
Mhm.
it. But basically, it's a law that says, students' records are protected. Like, you shouldn't be able, like, if you have a neighbor whose kid sucks, like, you shouldn't be able to go to an elementary school and be like, give me their like latest test results. Like, I do think that'd be awesome if you could do that, but like that's sort of the basis behind it is like you can't just be like requesting stuff about kids. That goes for, they're minors, their information shouldn't be out there. So it's just designed to protect kids. Now it's written very narrowly where like, it's education records, it's disciplinary records. A lot of people like to use it as a very blanket rejection that anything that is relating to an individual who is a child or a student at a university that applies to up to like through college cannot be released. So you can sometimes sort of have like rejections that you don't think should be rejected because you're like this isn't really like a kid's like grade or something. But it's pretty funny. I did a request to the University of Colorado. This was like last year. I mean, I did the request this year, but there was like drama over Shedeur Sanders' jersey being retired. Like, people were upset that Deion Sanders wanted to retire his son's jersey. So I like did some requests for emails about that stuff, and like they came back and they were like, there was some like there's some very funny redactions because they have to sort of redact student names. So it was like Dion wants to redact blank's jersey, and like it's still the number like number five, and it's just like, okay, I don't know what that redaction serves, but cool. One second, my dog is whining at my door because she doesn't like being left alone. So I'm gonna come.
No worries. We gotta listen, the dogs want to understand FOIA too. They want to
She's
be watched.
been. She's just. She's been. I won't speak on her. She's a good dog, but she's been driving me up a wall lately. A lot of vet bills that have been running up. But she's 13 and a half, so it's to be expected.
Shocking.
No, so like if you get a denial from FERPA, like, and that's the other thing is like, if you get a denial, like again, call it, ask why, ask what's going on. Like these FOIA experts, they know the law, and again, they want to help you. So like if someone says they can't be released because of FERPA, say, okay, but like how exactly does that work? I'm asking for this. How does FERPA apply there? And they're more than willing to chat with you, and walk you through it. And you can say, okay, if I did this, like they can't give you feedback on like specific records and requests often, but like if I did this request this way, would that be allowed within the law? And a lot of times they'll say yeah, and you're like, all right, well, let's do that.
Definitely. Yeah, and Diane, to your point about requesting data, like the way that FERPA gets involved with that is like if I think about K-12, and I used to work at Chalkbeat, which is a, national K-12 nonprofit newsroom, and we'd request data all the time. Often, if the student group size is small enough, they'll redact the data or do something called data suppression. So, say for example, you are requesting, yeah, test scores for the school that the, maybe annoying kid that lives down the street attends. If there are like certain categories that it's broken out by, like they like race or gender, um, typically I think like I don't know, Colorado is like an example, would suppress anything under 12 students, which would make it kind of tricky for navigating like really specific data sets. But the idea is like if you're able to figure out the student's name from what's being received, then it'll typically be redacted. But that's always a good example of like when we get data sets back that would be, yeah, super suppressed or like very redacted due to FERPA, calling up the records custodian or calling up even the person who's in charge of the data set, saying like, hey, could you slice and dice this a different way so that we could get access to this without it being suppressed? Like, is there a way to aggregate this or sum it up differently so that it's not, yeah, it's not, putting the student's privacy at risk, but also you're able to like get what you need because you might not always, yeah, might not
Yeah.
always like need it to be so specific, but
And
uh,
speaking specifically like helmet hit records, I don't know if you're talking about like if they log how many hits a specific helmet took before they like take it out of rotation. That might be something they log. In terms of like testing helmets to see how well they work, like the thing I'm learning that's frustrating with a lot of these athletics departments is a lot of this stuff is contracted out. They use a lot of third party stuff. That stuff you can get, but it's just like a little harder. You got to go around. So, if I were you, I would look up like helmet testing companies and ask for see if they have contracts with them to see if they're doing that, and then you can ask for data they provided or like results. Like I did a piece like a month ago on gambling like monitoring firms. So firms that would like monitor players for like sign-ins to gambling accounts and like game spreads that changed. And that's third-party data that this company has that they don't want to release, but you can still get it. Like you're like, well, that's okay. You have to give it to me. And the company gets mad at you, but the school is well within its right to give it to you, and you're well within the right to get it. So, Googling like what companies are out there can be useful. So just Googling like, helmet testing or, helmet hit tracker and seeing if there's a company that does it. Because there's probably a third party company that uses AI to log like every hit that a helmet's taken and sort of send an email that says when this needs to be out of rotation. And you could go about it that way. So I think that's always a
yeah.
good place to start.
And even piggybacking off of that, like, yeah, FOIA might be the journey, right? It might not be the destination. Like, and I
It
think,
is, there's a lot of journey, yeah.
yeah, a lot of journey. But I think like, yeah, calling up manufacturers even, or seeing if you could get any sort of instructional material or, yeah, like a how-to guide or a manual that they might be sending for those devices to the people that are buying them, right? So the universities, or if they have anything available online, like you could see if it does generate that data. And then if it does, then you can point to it when you file your request and say like, oh, hey, like this
Yeah,
generates data.
and you'd be
Um,
surprised. So like one of the last FOIAs I did, I never did a story on it. And all the files I got were lost to oh, I had a third tip for my interns is always use your personal email for FOIA because if you
yep.
use work email, one day it may go away. But I was doing, or I was just, I think I read somewhere about, like Texas border safety using drones to monitor things. So I asked for like contracts with Anduril, the like Palmer Luckey drone company, and sort of training material, stuff like that on how these drones work. And like Texas came back and they're like, Anduril's filed an objection with this. We're going to petition the Texas AG. They're going to send their petition, and the Texas AG will decide. And it turned out Anduril forgot to send their petition to the Texas AG, so I just got the stuff. So like, never sort of discount. I don't want to say luck, but like, you may think like, oh, this company doesn't want to release it. It's like they may not want to, but they also may like not want to fight it. And for as much as you think the government is trying to hide stuff, they're actually, I mean, they are, but like these laws are very, people that always are like FOIA laws are truthless, and it's like they're not. They're actually very powerful, and the people who you know, uh, help produce stuff, work very hard at it. You just have to know. You just can't get like everything. Like it would be great if you could get all sorts of like internal deliberations and stuff, but they're still pretty strong, so don't hesitate to use them as much as you can.
Definitely. So, I mean, speaking of government surveillance, like you did some reporting about DHS and HISN, right? And HISN,
Isn't, I think.
HISN.
I
Um,
work by myself, so I never say anything out loud anymore. So I
that's
don't know.
fair. But yeah, so you did some reporting about DHS and surveillance systems that it has in place at college football games. Like, would you mind talking about that and kind of like the story behind the story? Like, how did you know to
I mean,
request
yeah,
that?
absolutely. That's another good example of like, we shouldn't be afraid to sort of send see what might be out there, send whatever and see what you can get. Because I think a lot of schools like or some places don't deal with FOIA as much despite being subjected to the same laws as everyone. So that sort of stemmed from I did a piece right when I started on like Georgia's emails with the Athens Police Department. They have this guy, he's been in the news, who everyone calls like a fixer. His name's like Brian Gantz. I was like, I wonder they talked about him like being present at crime scenes and stuff. I was like, they've got to be emailing him. So I like requested all those emails, found out that they were like sharing body cam footage with him. I was like, all right, requested some more. Turned out like Georgia couldn't search for links in their system. So like I was like requesting links to Vimeo and they're like, there are none. I was like, this there are. You sent me these records. How is this stuff not coming up? And they're like, oh, we figured out like we can't search for links. I was like, well, it's great because I've been sending so many FOIAs out like asking for links about stuff. So you never know. Just because you got a rejection, it might mean their system doesn't work very well. Anyway, that's a very big aside to say that I decided to see if other schools had other fixers that might be emailing with police. No one has a very prominent one, but I went to instead of going to schools, I went straight to police departments and was like, give me your emails between officers and this guy. And Oxford just like sent me their like 300 emails. I was like, I don't think any of these are responsive, but whatever, I'll take them. Like I don't think they'd ever gotten a FOIA request before. They sent me like training docs for cops for grand juries. Like they were like, here's what we're gonna say in this grand jury testimony, or like here's where you didn't say the right attorney like district attorneys like prepping cops for grand jury testimony. I was like, that's interesting. I don't think that should be released. But attached to one of the emails was a event action plan for an Ole Miss game. I was sort of scrolling through it and it was kind of interesting. It was like, okay, they have a lot of cops, they work with state police and stuff, there's all these sort of responsive systems. And then I like saw at the bottom, I was like, and we use DHS's HISN to um uh surveil these things. And I was like, huh, that's wild. Like I feel like I vaguely heard of like this, but maybe, maybe there's something more. And I would always suggest like just because you think a story's been covered, it might not be. And I was sitting there like Googling any which way I could for like DHS college football HISN. Like, it's not out there. Like you'd be surprised. A lot of times a lot of journalists see something and they're dismissive because they're like, that's probably been covered or that's not a story. And it's like, it actually is. So then I sent out some more requests. Around it, and I didn't get anything back at all. I got some like DHS data back, and so it was just sitting on the story for a while. I was waiting on more stuff from Ole Miss, and they kind of sent back stuff that wasn't worthwhile. And I was like, let's just go back to Googling some stuff. And deep in like internet searches, I found like DHS publishes these brochures about them, where they're just like, here's what we did at HISN this week, and it's like we added video surveillance to college football games. It's like, again, someone's had to have covered this. I'm Googling it like every which way. And then I got to one where it was like, Ohio State has been giving us live CCTV footage of Gaza protesters. Like, again, how is this not like out there? So, frantically Googling and seeing it's not out there, I'm like, all right, let's get a story. So a lot of that wasn't actually based on FOIA. Like I got a FOIA that showed me these things exist and sort of how they operate, but like I was able to do that just by looking things up. Like when I emailed Ohio State. They were like, "How did you get this information?" And I was like, "The DHS published it." Like, so that's on them, not me. But yeah. So again, never underestimate. Like, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of government records are just published out there, and like if you just sort of keep on snooping, you never know what you're gonna find.
Yeah. So when you were filing record requests, and I'm glad that you linked to like the annual report or whatever, and it is right there. It's like, oh yeah, OSU, and you include a screenshot of it in the story, um, where it's like, I don't know, it feels like a medium ticket item in that annual report where they're like, oh, look at the
Yeah.
upgrades that OSU did. Like, um, when you were filing, Mhm.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say when you're filing for records for that story, like what agencies were you targeting? Like obviously DHS, but then the
So I actually didn't
well,
file one to
hmm,
DHS there. I like don't love filing to federal government agencies because it's just such a long sort of process. When I was at the Daily Dot, we covered a lot of like internet culture and stuff. So we did a lot of FCC ones, and that would take a long time to do. And like if I send this to DHS, I would be looking at 6 months and rejection and stuff like that. So actually, I try to stay away from federal agencies just because I don't think it's worthwhile. That was also something I taught a lot of my students because I was like, we have a finite time. We've got like 6 months here for this internship, so like we're gonna go at smaller and smaller agencies, and a lot of these smaller agencies interface with larger agencies, so you can go about it that way. But I just sent these ones to schools. I sent it to the schools that had were mentioned in the emails, like Georgia Tech, Ohio State. Obviously, I did Ole Miss, UCF, and they didn't give much back. But like the thing is, there's probably more out there. Like that's the other thing is just because some things have been reported. I probably could have sent this to 60 schools, but I was like, I didn't expect to get much back anyway because they can restrict a lot on the grounds of security and stuff like that. So that actually, again, that one wasn't built on that much FOIA work. Other ones have been, but that one was kind of just more like public DHS documents.
yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, it certainly seems like a story that could spurn like more FOIA work. Like you include like
You
all of
should, yeah.
your yeah, I'm like here, and I can screen share the story too because you got some good screenshots from that report. Um, like for example,
I think, and that's the thing. Like, I could be talking about like how I know FOIA all the time, and I send tons of requests, and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't even think to like FOIA DHS after just for the fun of it to like see what's there later. So like, there's always more you can do.
well, I will say my yeah, like national events supported, right? This is so fascinating. Like being based in Chicago, Lollapalooza, like is um something that happens here for sure. F1, would be relevant to Las Vegas and then any other potential potential places they decide to scope out. But yeah, it seems like there's a lot of potential there, like based on that reporting and based on um those reports. But yeah. Um
Yeah, I feel like these systems do have like internal chat logs, so just seeing what they're saying during like Lollapalooza would be interesting. So certainly go request like I would like, and they're hosted by DHS. The one thing to find out is like all the documents that are sent to DHS are hosted by DHS for at some point I think it was like a 12-year retainer period. That might have changed. That was from like an older thing. It might have been 6 years I saw in 2012. So you could ask DHS for their like chat logs, during Lollapalooza. They may not give it to you, but there's lots of stuff out there.
Definitely. Say like writing this down and then the second this is over, it's like scrambling to Muckrock to file a whole bunch of records requests for all of these. Um, but yeah, I mean, one of the things that
Please do.
So one of the things that different universities and even just government agencies, right? They'll use third-party programs. Like, have you found any issues with like internal systems and like requesting data from internal systems? I don't know, how do you approach that?
So I'm like the thing I kind of you should keep in mind is I'm sort of still learning how this whole world works. I only started this, I started trying to do FOIAs in like June, so I'm
Mhm.
really only like 6 months in. But a lot of times, like, you know, a lot of them use different internal, like a lot of the athletic departments use what's called Teamworks, and like I don't think it has a great search function, and that's probably intentional. Um, so you need to sort of like suss out, like I've sort of been building this in stages that I want to get to. It's like first off, like I've been doing like FOIAs of like what apps are downloaded on your coach's phone for communication, and then like take a screenshot of it. And sometimes they won't do that, sometimes they will. The University of Minnesota asked me to like pay for PJ Fleck, their head coach's time to take a screenshot of his phone. I was like, well, even 1 second of his time is probably more than I want to pay.
Yeah.
But like, a lot of times I will do requests for like email communications, internal Slack logs, and like Microsoft Teams communications. One person did tell me that they weren't like Teams, the search, the like one officer said like the search function on Teams wasn't that great, so they just. And my thought is, you should probably, if you want emails, go for emails. If you want internal communications, do them separately. Because I think a lot of FOIA officers just see emails and then they ignore the rest of it. Like I have not gotten anything back on Slack messages, some stuff back on Teamworks. You just sort of have to figure it out. And then like text messages, this is a funny one. If you want to coach's text messages, like someone has to go to the coach and be like, "Show me your phone," and like a lot of people don't want to do that. So there's that too. But yeah, like just doing your best to like keep learning and learning and learning. You'll figure out what's going on. Like I'm still not sure the best way to go about it because there's so much communication these teams are having. Like I did get one on that back like I got all the like group chats the coach was in, and there's like coordinators and like this stuff. And I haven't looked at it yet, but I'm like, all right, we're starting to figure out some ways we could um, cover this stuff and then suss it out more. So I could be like, give me all these texts from coordinator chat or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah,
Um,
Kelly just shared a great guide on
oh,
requesting
awesome!
messages.
I should probably read that because I saw Chris had a question about like pulling for events. Yeah, I mean, like booking contracts is great. I did some like game day requests to get like their sort of rider and stuff, and they didn't have anything too crazy, which I was very disappointed in. But I think that's pretty like you just want to be like very straightforward and narrow. Like I don't see I would ask for contracts, invoices is good, and stuff like that. So that looks like a good request to me. I assume it hasn't been rejected yet, right?
I was gonna say one of the tips that I've done with events or like kind of like outside groups, right, on public property, like targeting the facilities department might be a good solution. Like you usually have people who are being paid overtime if it's like a weekend event. Say like like an athletic center or something that's not a standard athletic team. Um, just also thinking about all of the random Saturdays I've spent like at a random community college gym for whatever sports event. Like, yeah, usually they have like custodial staff. You have to have a facilities person or someone in operations. I'm sure that there's also like, requesting calendars. Um, could be,
Yes, calendars are a great one to do. You can always find fun stuff about that.
yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, I mean, are there other types of records that you tend to like to request? Obviously, like logs when they're available,
Not
text messages.
necessarily. I mean, I always want like, and everyone's guilty of this. We want the communications, like we want emails. We want to see what people are saying, what's going on behind the scenes. And like that is also unfortunately the thing that like FOIA officers have the hardest time doing because they have to be reviewed, they have to be redacted, they have to like it's much easier to just hand over a contract than it is to go through 200 emails. So like I'm trying to wean myself off of like emails is the only good thing. Let's see what else is out there. But we all want emails. Like that's interesting stuff. Things like graduated. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how much schools are spending on like spending on weird things. I love bar tabs. I love like restaurant checks. Like seeing where people are eating, I think is very fascinating to me. Like I was doing like the Big Ten had their media day in Las Vegas this summer, and I was like, okay, let me see what like steakhouses they're eating at. And like, there's some interesting things. I don't think I've written about this yet, but like Nebraska like DoorDashed like 50 burritos and 30 hamburgers to their private jet when they were leaving, and I was like, I mean, if I had that kind of money, I would too, but like just sort of like, all right, that's a little ridiculous. But yes, to Nancy's point, like I think one of the bigger stories, I think we did it. I don't know. It was either the Daily Dot or it was like Gizmodo. I can't remember because there's been a lot of pass through with the people there. I didn't do it. But like an editor who's over there at Gizmodo, like requested Ajit Pai's schedules when he was at the FCC when they were like working to repeal net neutrality, and it showed him just right away. It's like meeting with Comcast person, meeting with Verizon person. I was like, okay, he's just meeting with these lobbyists who like want it repealed, and he's not meeting with any people on the flip side. So like schedules are very, very important. That stuff can get redacted a little bit, but it's sort of it's a very revealing uh, it is a very revealing document. It's smart to get those.
I'm sharing in the chat. There's a great your comment about I don't know. I want to do like a 55 burgers, 55 fries. But yeah, your comment about the 50 burritos and 30 burgers, like Politico earlier this year they didn't use FOIA, but they used FEC filings to find where members of Congress were eating in DC.
Yeah.
And it's such a great encapsulation of that, right? Of like this is public money, right? These are public servants, like this is public business, and like these things are yeah, accessible and available. Like everything is basically a record.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that's actually a good example of how to ask for less at first. Like, sorry, I got some of that. When I was first requesting these, I was like, give me every single itemized receipt from this like event. And they're like, that's gonna take so long. And like, we have a spreadsheet that has all this out. It just doesn't have receipts attached to it. And I was like, okay, so going forward, I'll just ask for these spreadsheets. And then like if I see something that piques my interest, I can ask for a receipt. And a records officer is very happy to just be like, yeah, I'll send you one receipt. That's, record closed. That's fantastic. As opposed to asking for more and more and more. So sort of trying to find ways to ask for the narrow thing first, see if it exists, and then go after it after is sort of again just really really important.
Definitely. Well, yeah, well, if anyone has any other questions, we can open it up to maybe like a Q&A or I know people have been asking questions throughout and they've been very good ones. So
Yeah, I want to go back to the one from Diane about like concussion studies and brain damage in players. Again, like I do think a lot of that is protected, but not just by FERPA, but by HIPAA. But like again, I think what you'd be best at is, you know, calling people up, asking about that, but like asking for aggregate data, anonymized data. A lot of medical studies do like anonymized data. And just because like people are citing HIPAA and FERPA doesn't mean you can't get it. I have a story I haven't written, I don't know, wrote yet. That is like what kind of drugs athletic departments are buying, like what kind of painkillers, what kind of muscle relaxers. And like a lot of people like that's protected by HIPAA. And I'm like, no, you buying a drug is not protected by HIPAA. Like you writing a prescription is. So like there's all sorts of ways you can sort of look to it and do your best to um, see what's out there. Send some like see what like if you have one out there that's been rejected. I mean, obviously feel free to send it to me, but like try and build off that rejection.
yeah, and I'll put my email in
Oh,
the chat as well. I just popped it in there. Diane, if you want to reach out with like maybe the denials you've received or like the appeals you've received or you've filed, like happy to take a look as well. Um,
yeah.
but
To answer Nancy's question there, yes, it is. It's interesting to be like, okay, maybe FOIA won't be that uh, to some, in the current administration. And obviously, there's been a lot of turnover in government in the past 12 years, but a lot of FOIA officers are civil servants. They're not appointed by the president. They're sort of somewhat far enough down the totem pole that it doesn't really come up. So they're willing to do their job. I was talking to a FOIA officer, and they say a lot of strategy at universities is set top down. Like a person will come in and say like, "Hey, we want to be open." A person will come and say, "Hey, we don't mind a lawsuit or two over FOIA." Like you would like to think that it's just done like reasonably, but there are sort of ways to play within it. So, it could be that like there are loyalists, within the Trump government in FOIA offices not doing it. We've seen stuff like that where like, DHS is uh, sort of somewhat refusing to abide by records laws, and like some places were canceling backlogs of records and just getting rid of it. So like, what can you do? You can keep trying, we can all band together and sue. We can hope that it doesn't sort of permanently go away. But again, you know, you can't always do this. If you have to report on the federal government, you have to report on the federal government. But all these states have these laws, and they all again interface with the federal government. So you can sort of find out. I always talk about like finding back doors into it, trying to like you can't get emails from private companies, but you can get private companies' emails to public institutions. So like I've done requests to schools where it's like part of the his one was like give me emails. From DHS to this official, and a lot of it was like password resets because they're forgetting the password. But there's always ways to do it, and it would suck if the federal government has cracked down and doesn't do it anymore. But find places that are doing it, try to use it, and you know, I'm not a lawyer that can bring a case to the administration, but there are a lot of good lawyers who care very passionately about this, and they're doing their best as well. So. It's a somewhat bleak answer, but I don't have a long-term solution. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, it definitely, I think that's good advice of like, yeah, finding a back door. Like one strategy I like to take is FOIAing multiple places for the same thing. Sometimes the redactions are different, which is very helpful. And I should also add, if and when, if is very optimistic, when you get a document back that has redactions, just double checking the state of those redactions is very helpful. If it's like a PDF, just like do a little quick double click on the redaction to make sure that, or like highlight it, see if there's any text underneath, see if there's stuff they didn't mean, like they didn't do the redaction properly. Software has definitely caught up so that it's like, pretty solid. But like sometimes if someone's using Adobe Acrobat, for example, they
yeah.
can forget to like save the redaction. And so instead it's like just a big black box, but you can drag the box off, right? And
The small, yeah.
yeah, there are some good tools too that I want to say, well, Document Cloud certainly has plugins for redactions. And you
Mhm.
can get into Document Cloud with your Muckrock login. But
Yeah. I was gonna say
yeah,
the smaller the place, the more likely they are to screw up the FOIA redactions, but you never know.
this is
But
true.
I had right before I got here, a guy was DMing me, and he was like, I posted all the emails from this UCLA story on Document Cloud, and what he had done was he just took the signature from a donor wasn't not the like the email signature, like the company's name was redacted, but like their tagline of like we do this, that, and the other wasn't. I didn't even think about that, but he threw it into Google and it's like, oh, it's this company and this person graduated from UCLA, so it's this guy. And I was like, so there's I'm gonna start looking at like email signatures and footers to see what is in there that hasn't been redacted because someone's name is redacted and maybe the company is required, but like the company's motto, like that doesn't necessarily have to be. So, and I do sometimes think that FOIA officers are like willing to give you little Easter eggs. Uh, but maybe that's just me imagining things.
I was gonna say that's very charitable to be very, very, but I agree. I feel like, yeah, romanticizing it a little bit, adding a little bit of whimsy of like,
Yeah.
oh, they meant to leave in this Google Drive link, which by the way, you can request as a document. I've done this multiple times where yeah, there have been drive links or attachments to a calendar invite or attachments to a Google Meet, like so many universities and educational institutions, government agencies use Google Workspace. And so Google Workspace has a lot of documentation online about ways that their system is used and also ways that things can be exported. Um, but yeah, so you can send a Google Drive link, say maybe it's like if you hover over text that's interactive in a PDF and it throws you back a link like in the preview, you can grab that and send it and say like I want the document at the end of this link or I want the data that built this dashboard, or I want,
We click it and sometimes it's still up, although I can't legally recommend that. But sometimes, sometimes there are things that, like they haven't taken down that are still up. And if you don't need a password to get into it, you can technically sort of view it if it's there, if it's just online and it's accessible by any link. So do not take that as legal advice, but you never know.
definitely. Well, are there any parting thoughts for people as they're, going into this Thanksgiving week of college rivalry games, of, maybe having a little bit of extra time to sit back and file a couple FOIA requests for fun? I mean, every FOIA request to me is fun, but
Yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah, have fun with it. Don't ever feel bad sending a weird request.
yeah, definitely. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. I will say, I will write up the tip sheet and, share it out. Kelly will send it out alongside the recording of our conversation and the session, which has been super insightful of getting records into, yeah, college football programs and the like, and everything that comes with it. But yeah. Oh yeah, Nancy. I definitely agree. The school monitoring, gambling monitoring story was super fascinating as well. Um, but yeah, well, I will get that tip sheet together and share it out so you'll have some light reading going into your Thanksgiving week. Our next FOIA Friday, I think, will be the week prior to Christmas and Hanukkah. It'll be like another Friday early, similar to this month. So stay tuned for the panelists for that. But thank you, David, for coming. This has been such a
Fascinating.
conversation. I'm really excited to dive in, especially with his in. I'm like, I don't know, the gears are turning in my head.
Go for
So
it. I mean, I'm happy to help you, and that's the thing. Like, there's always more stuff to do. So, like, it's not once the documents are out there, once people know about it, it's everyone's story to go chase after. So, please do. I would love for you to.
absolutely. Alrighty. Well,
Cool.
take
Have
care,
a good
everyone.
rest.
Have a
Yeah,
good
yeah. Thank you so
weekend.
much for having me. This was a pleasure. And yeah, if you ever have a question, I'm based in Brooklyn. But I'm on all the social media platforms. It's either FOIAball or my name, David Covucci. But yeah, if you ever have, like I said, I've been teaching this for a long time with like college students. If you ever have a question, just hit me up. I'm always happy to chat. I can nerd out on it with anyone. Please do reach out.
Definitely. Alrighty, everyone. Take care. Have a good weekend. Have a happy holiday. And we will see you in December. All right. Bye.